Welcome back to The Move, where we are vibing with the book guaranteed more than 10 minutes.
The next at least 10 minutes are on Hebrews chapter 11, verses 1 through 3.
Now, this is a chapter I love, particularly the beginning verses.
The one about faith.
Oh, yeah.
Why is faith so important to you?
Well, one, it's the language of the old King Jimmy, right?
Sure.
For faith is the assurance of things hoped for,
Yeah.
the substance of things unseen.
That is the keyword substance, is what I'm hearing.
Substance. Say it like Sean Connery.
Yeah, exactly.
Substance. Yeah, man, that word is powerful, dude.
Okay, so substance. I'm trying to understand. Okay, why would that be a potent piece of language to use? The thing upon which all things are created from.
That's
Substance.
right. Yeah, substance is this idea, the word that Paul uses in the Greek. It's this idea by which all things exist, but it itself needs nothing for it to be.
Okay.
Right? So substance is that which philosophically, using philosophical language, everything is predicated on it, and it itself is not predicated on anything.
It's the unmoved mover?
I mean, it is certainly the thing that is necessary for everything to be, but it itself does not need others for it to be, right?
Sure.
So that everything that exists
Comes from faith.
It comes in this substance, right? This word substance, before we get to the word faith, is this word substance. This quality, this thing, this property that by which all things actually exist. So for Paul to connect faith and say faith is the substance, you're like, wait, hold on. So the faith is the thing by which all things are actually things, but it itself is not.
Yeah, a thing. The reason why this might be question-inducing is because when we think of faith, we think of an imaginary thing. But when we think of substance, we think of things that are real.
Yeah.
And so how can reality be built on something that is, and this is in air quotes, imaginary?
Yeah, because faith is, and when you say imaginary, as though it doesn't have a material.
Like not concrete.
Yeah, it's not concrete. So
Concrete
it's not,
objects versus...
Yeah, absolutely. So this is why, back to, what is it?
Back to reality. Oh, there
I
goes
was grabbing this guy. Look at this. Verse 3. This is where you start getting into it. By faith, we understand that the universe was created by the word of God, right? The word of God. Where have we? What the word of God? Who or what is that?
I think we would do the shout out to season 2 of The Move, that hidden apocryphal podcast that's only available on YouTube on a separate channel. You have to really look hard for it because there's only 3/4 of a season. That one?
Yeah. The lost season. But if you go to Hebrews 1,
oh,
we
true, because
Hebrews,
we just stay within the book. It's a little bit easier than that. Don't have to go cross country.
Right? If you go to Hebrews 1, long ago. I mean, the way that Hebrews starts, bro, it is so good.
I know, you do the same thing every time.
I'm not going to do it. Long ago, at many times and in many ways, God spoke to our fathers by the prophets. But in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, through whom he also created the world. What? Hold up, huh? So then in Hebrews 1, it's through the Son he created the world, but then in Hebrews 11, it's by faith we understand the universe was created by the Word of God. So the universe was created by the Word of God, but then in Hebrews 1, it's the Son. Well, let's keep reading. Well, look at this. Verse 3. He is the radiance of the glory of God, the exact imprint of his nature, and he upholds the universe by the word of his power. After making purification for sins, he sat down at the right hand of the Majesty on high, having become much more superior to the angels, right? So the word of his power, the Son has power in his word. Hebrews 11, the world was created by the word of God. And then all of a sudden, you go to John chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So all of a sudden, you start seeing some connective tissue come together, and you're like, hold up. The world being created by the Word of God is not only the audible Word, but there's literally a person who's to be understood as the Word of God, right? Now watch. When the Word of God, cough, cough, Jesus, speaks, what happens?
The language I've been using lately in my reels is that all of reality bends in to that word.
Yeah. So when Jesus speaks, reality appears, right? You see this is the grand opening of Genesis 1, man. God speaks, let there be light. Boom. Right? And when God speaks, there's like, this is the grand opening to John, right? And it's the greater unveiling of John that localizes this word in a person. And now the revelation continues in Hebrews that this is how the world was created, through the word of his power, which is not only spoken, but is a person. So it's both enacted and performed, but it's also embodied. So this coincides back with John, that was the word, is
becomes
the word,
flesh.
actually becomes flesh. And then in Hebrews 11, this is all to be understood in relationship to faith. And you're like, wait, what is going on?
Yes, because that's me right now. I was going to frame the question in a way that feigns humility to those who might be struggling with connecting all these dots. Jonathan, my friend has a question.
Yeah.
Why does this matter?
Go to Galatians chapter 3.
Oh, okay. So we go to Galatians.
Go to verse 23. Now, I know this is outside of Hebrews.
I know we're supposed to stay
just-
in
we
Hebrews.
stay-
These were the rules.
I'm supposed to stay in rule.
All right. What you've been everywhere. You've been to Genesis to
I
John.
could never color between the lines.
Never. Actually, honestly, I never could.
Yeah, no, I'm dead serious. Neither could I. Hebrews 3. I mean, Galatians 3. Look at verse 23.
Galatians 3, verse 23.
Yeah.
This is one of these study Bibles where I get like 4 verses on every page. And
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
a bunch of old dudes writing stuff.
100%.
All right, Galatians 3, verse 23. Now before faith came, we were held captive under the law, imprisoned until the coming faith would be revealed. Okay.
Huh?
Okay.
So faith comes. But what is faith? Or more importantly, who is faith? Because faith is not merely belief. Even the demons believe, and they don't have faith. Faith is more than that. Faith is actually, it seems to be, and we'll cover it through this chapter, but faith seems to be the embodied expression of the spoken word of God. Right? This is why.
Faith is the embodied expression of the spoken word of God. Okay, that makes sense to me. John 1,
Yeah, I'll
verse
give
14.
you one definition, right? Faith is also this dynamic that when God speaks, the world, reality itself obeys. That's faith. Faith is the agreement between the word spoken and reality complying. So if I sit here and I say, Justin, that's a beautiful hat you have on,
Doesn't mean anything.
doesn't mean anything. Why? Because I'm not the one with the authority. However, if I say, if Jesus was here, like, Justin, that's a great hat you got on. Boom, hat. Why? Because what he speaks is what reality does. And that is the beginning of faith, right? Faith is the agreement between God and corresponding reality, as it were. This is how I really think it's like this. You see this in, again, Genesis 1. You see it in John 1. You see it in Hebrews 1. You see it in Hebrews 11. That the beginning of faith is this sort of agreement, and it's this deep integrity, right, between his word and that which corresponds to what he has spoken. So that when Jesus actually comes into the world and he comes in flesh as a baby, what word does he live according to, and what word does he believe? He believes the very word that he gave the prophets that would reveal him.
He believes his own word.
And he believes his own word, right? And he believes it as a man, right? From the Father. So the Father, every single word that my Father speaks is what I do. I don't do anything outside of my Father's word, right? And remember, the word that was spoken to these prophets of old in the Psalms and the writings, these are the words that we believe have come through the pre-incarnate Christ when he received them from his Father back then, and then actually gave them to the prophets. 1 Peter 1:11, that these prophets, being moved by the Spirit, were curious what they were writing down as they were actually writing these things down. Jesus sees them. hears them, believes them, reads them, and understands them to be about himself, so that the word spoken finds agreement in a life lived in flesh. And there, the universe actually has its very foundational building block, the God who has spoken with the man who actually receives and believes this all in one person. Clack, 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 right? So unbelieving Hebrews, the unbelieving Israelites that couldn't get their act right through these 11 chapters are now receiving this message in the book of Hebrews. They're like, faith has come, right?
This is transformational because the goal up to that point was to have faith?
No, it's I don't know. The transformational, you asking why it's transformational for me?
Sure.
Yeah, it's transformational for me because I always used to think that faith was just some sort of intellectual assent to believe. What I'm trying to tell you is that, like, everything that I believe about God, the demons know better.
Yeah.
If there are those who actually know the spirit world and actually knew God, they know better than I do.
Yeah, if there's an entrance exam that St. Peter administers at the gate, the demons are going to score higher than us.
100%. If it's about believing and knowing more things about God, right?
Yeah.
Like in this material sort of sense, that's not what faith is.
No.
Faith is more than that. It's not only believing, but it's also an abiding trust. But that abiding trust is not generated by me. That abiding trust was first generated by Jesus. He is faith. And he generated that abiding trust in his faithfulness to the words of his Father's faithfulness. And so he was faithful. So then he is the faithful one who originates the sort of faith that I actually need to live out and live within, so that then, because he's been faithful, now he communicates his faithful life to me and generates faith within me. And I see the revelation of his faithfulness. I do believe, but in believing, there's something else that takes place. There's a faithfulness that's given to me, his faithfulness in me, that generates a conviction within me to live according to his word. And that doesn't come by merely believing. Like, it doesn't come just by intellectual assent. It comes by something being generated within me that I receive as a gift because I see it. I can at least apprehend and comprehend it. It's the love of God as revealed in the person of Jesus, in his life, death, resurrection at the cross. I see it clearly, right? I think it's John Wesley. I think it's Aldersgate, his Aldersgate experience, where I think it's Romans 8 that just comes to his mind. He sees this picture of the love of God so great, and he's so moved that his whole life is upended, and he covers the world with Methodism, him and his brother, right? It's like, right? Is it John Wesley? John Wesley, yes. I could think of E.J. Wagner. E.J. Wagner, as he's sitting outside of a camp meeting, and all of a sudden it comes before him, the cross of Jesus, elevated and supreme, and all of a sudden all his shackles fall away, and he knows the love of God deeply. Why? Because through the revelation, faith takes hold, right? Because faith comes by hearing by the word. You hear it again? The word. So the word actually brings faith with it. Boom, gets a hold of you. You give yourself over to this thing, and now you can't be moved from that which you've received. So if God tells you, hey, I need you to build a boat because water's going to fall from the sky, you're like, water doesn't fall from the sky. What do you talk about? Water comes from the ground. He's like, nah, water's going to come from the sky. By faith, you say, okay. Why? Because you believe his word over the reality that water has never fell from the sky. If he comes to you and he says, hey, your old behind wife is going to have a baby. Okay. How's that going to happen? Don't worry about it. It's going to come from her. Okay. Right? Or if he comes and says, I need you to sacrifice your son on this mountain, but you promised me that son. You said that he would be my heir and he would live beyond me. Just sacrifice him. Okay. Right? This is faith. Yeah. Faith says yes to the unbelievable in the material sense, but that's not where we ground our belief anymore. You see what I'm saying? So for Paul, man, as he starts, I just think it's so stinking dope that faith is actually you agreeing with his word when everything else is in disagreement. So this little girl is dead. What you talk about? Nah, she's only sleeping. She's dead. Okay. Right? Or it's the centurion. He's like, no. You don't even come into my house. Just say the word. And Jesus is like, wait. What do you know about the power of my word?
Yeah.
I know that when you speak, it obeys. Reality obeys. I'm a man under authority. I know that when I say, they do. But I know something about you. I've seen what you do and who you are. When you speak, reality obeys. So no, you don't need to come in. You don't, just say it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's faith. That's why then he turns around and he's like, man, I have not found faith like this in all of Israel.
Right.
Because everybody else thinks formula, do. The centurion sees it. No. Speak. Right? Just say the word.
I think this is fitting coming right after Hebrews chapter 10, where it's talking about we're not the ones that shrink back. We're not the ones that, doubt the revelation, but those of us who have faith and preserve our souls. Is this idea of like, listen, no, take it at face value. This is what it says. Come hell or high water, this is what we're building our house on. On Christ, the solid rock I stand.
All other ground is sinking sand. All right. And so this is faith. This is why I get excited about these first few verses. Verse 2, for by it people of old received their commendation. Like the people of old received their commendation because through them and in them was evidence of the faithfulness of God because they believed in spite of the circumstances of life telling them they shouldn't believe. And God was like, this is my righteous one who lives by faith. Verse 38 of chapter 10. This is my righteous one who lives by faith and doesn't shrink back. Right? My soul, if he shrinks back, my soul has no pleasure in him, right? But the ones who have faith, the ones who actually believe God, according to the word that he's spoken, he's like, man, you're with me, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're with you because you're with us. Like, yeah, I am. And that's where his pleasure can actually land somewhere, right? Because those who resist, it's not as though he doesn't want to have pleasure with them. He doesn't want to have it. He does, but they resist. They don't believe the word. But for those who do believe the word, even in the midst of lions, and they say, nah, my God will protect me.
Yeah.
Even in the midst of a furnace, and they say, God's able to save us. If he doesn't, we're good, right? That's the ones that God's like, man, they trust me.
Yeah.
And they know I'll turn out for them, right? This is faith.